I think maybe stupid is too strong of a word, but a technology, in my view, cannot and should not replace a human-to-human interaction at our core level of what makes us humans. And people searching out for that human connection in these technologies, I think, will ultimately end up being disappointed.
I think most of the hype is cosplay, I have to say, but the shift underneath is 100% real. People love pretending that they are AI founders, NASDAQs, and fancy agent demos, but zero adoption.
I even give a talk called Hype, Hope, and a Little Bit of Substance. But I think that there is crazy frothy valuations out there.
I think it's much closer to the early internet. Like you said, the internet took 20 years to reshape how humans get information. But AI just did it within maybe 12 months.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Amplify AI podcast, where marketers, builders, and operators come together and decode on new rules on AI visibility. I'm Anil, a marketing leader who built a brand from 0 to millions, scale influencer ecosystem, and driven omnichannel growth across retail giants like Costco, Sam's Club, Amazon, Walmart. Tonight, I have the privilege to invite two absolutely powerhouse shaping the future of AI. Mengqi is my founding member of and CEO of Amplift AI, a former TikTok leader and Sequoia fellow, who's redefining how the brands win visibility in the AI-first world. And I have Simyoung here, the founder CEO of Compute Exchange, former Apple AI ML head of strategy and Lambda VP, and one of the sharpest minds in the compute infrastructure and what it really takes to make AI scale. So together we're going to talk about, no one else is brave enough to touch. So why marketing visibility is breaking and what AI compute and creators will replace it with. So let's start just by giving a little brief introduction on your background. You can touch on that. That would be great. I'll start with Simyoung.
It's great to be here with you, and this is going to be a great conversation. I think I've been building in AI, and I use air quotes because we didn't used to call some of this stuff AI since I was 15 in my first job. I think what's probably most interesting to your audience members has been the last few years. I went to Japan in 2017 because, I have this thought, Japan's been stuck in the 90s since the 80s, I like to say. Because what we've seen is a country that was leading in many industrial technologies in manufacturing really fall behind since the 90s in the more digital age. And so it's there that I started the first AI research lab, and we called it JINCH, which from the Chinese characters Jinko Chino, which means artificial intelligence. You take the first character of each word, it means human knowledge. And so we believed in unlocking human knowledge and potential through artificial intelligence. But as life happens, I visited my fiance at the time, March 15th of 2020. And 2 days into that 1 week vacation, the world stopped functioning and the border shut down and COVID happened. And for anyone that's a founder out there, you probably can appreciate it's kind of hard to run your company from a different geo on an indefinite basis. And so after about 6 months of trying to do that, I transitioned that business over to my co-founder in Japan, and I had the chance to join Apple. And as you said, that was a pretty interesting time to join a big tech company because it was pre-ChatGPT 3.5. and also post, right? So there were 2 years of pre and 1 year of post that at Apple. And when I left Apple, I did so because I saw the world through the lens of this big tech company and being one of the largest consumers of compute, right? What we call AI infrastructure. But then I wanted to go back and build in a large and rapidly scaling team. And Lambda Labs, which is today one of the largest neoclouds, presented that opportunity. I'll end my intro by saying, most recently, I co-founded and was the CEO of the first financial market for compute. If you think about the largest, commodities in the world, most people think of oil and gas, and that's a 3 trillion market. Our bet at Compute Exchange has been that compute will become the largest commodity in the world. And for those that follow the industry closely, you'll see that that's what's happening. Just this year, we've heard about $1 trillion or so of investments announced, and it seems like next year that's going to continue to increase well and above that. And so I just recently left the company, and maybe we'll talk towards the end of this about what comes next, but it's a really exciting time to be in AI and also to be here with you.
Awesome. Yeah. I pass the baton to
Yes.
Monica.
Yeah, hello everyone. I think the audience from this podcast are quite familiar with me already. And yeah, I'm the founder and the CEO of Amplift.ai. Amplift is a visibility OS because today many brands live in two parallel worlds, the human internet and the AI internet. And Amplift just wanna connect all the dots from geo, AEO optimization to influencer campaigns to social listening signals. And the most important part is Amplift doesn't just report, it acts. Our agents will execute the work like geo optimization, creator sourcing, social listening, or help you to do the narrative shaping, content footprint expansion, etc. We used to have to require like 5 or 10 tools, 3 agencies or 10 people, but right now we track your visibility across the world, diagnose what's missing, and use AI agents to execute the actions. So instead of just patching tactics one by one, we give brands a system to grow their visibility end to end. Yeah, that's what basically Amplift is doing.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, let's kick out with our 4 different category of questions that I wrote. So hopefully Simeon likes the question. I didn't show him any of the question beforehand because I want to get his most honest answer. So yeah, let's get started. So the category 1, we're gonna talk about, Simeon, you work for, Apple, like such a great company, and then you were leading like the Siri development team. So I was really interested on hearing your thought. What do you think next generation Siri gonna look like in your mind?
Ooh, this I will do my best to answer, but I will also say that Apple is not a fan of ex-Applers talking about Apple. And I know this firsthand. And so, especially given the news that John Giandrea, the SVP in charge of AI/ML at Apple, is retiring, there's a lot of press just this week about hypothesizing what's going to happen at Apple. So let me start. I think I'll be a lot more interesting on the other questions, but let me start by just stating the facts. Apple's going through a transition right now. They made an announcement at WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference, last year around Apple Intelligence. I think it's fair to say that some of the expectations they set weren't met. And so there's kind of a new approach being taken now, right? And so the teams are being reconsidered, and we're seeing that they've brought in a new VP of AI/ML to report to Craig, the software SVP, who just came from Microsoft and Google before that. What I expect to see in a new version of Siri, and this is based on my personal perspective, is an integration with more and more third-party AI labs. So we know that Apple already integrates with ChatGPT in a 3-pronged approach. For the most privacy-preserving simple queries, it runs on your device. And I see a lovely little cat there. I should have had my little dogs running in here. But they'll have it running on their device, right? This iPhone. For slightly more complex queries, they'll have an Apple private cloud, right? Which I think is a very cool and privacy-preserving thing using Apple Silicon. And then for the most complex queries today, they kind of push that to ChatGPT. In the future, I think that won't just be ChatGPT, but it'll be probably a constellation of different models. Apple also develops its own models, but they aren't those frontier large general purpose models. And so I suspect that Siri of the future, as you said, will be leaning, at least for now, on the external partnerships, similar to how Apple has a partnership on search with Google.
That's a great answer. And I didn't know like Apple doesn't actually like ex-employee talk about Apple. What about you, Monica?
Yeah, actually, I bought a iPhone from Los Angeles just because I want to use the Siri, because in Chinese iPhone we couldn't use the Apple Intelligence. So I think I have the right to say something about it because I have already experienced it, and I think it's quite kind of well integrated in my phone because I have many. I don't know how to say the quick command to access that ability. So for me, it's quite convenient, but I don't think the intelligence within is kind of very high level because I ask many questions and I don't think Siri could give me the perfect answers because sometimes I just ask Siri, okay, what's this in my screen? And I don't think it could perform the best reasoning. So I think maybe later in next version of the new LM model or multimodal model, I think maybe it could perform well.
Very nice. So kicking back to you, Simeon, let me know if you can touch on this subject. So like, what is the one thing Siri actually did right that the industry doesn't give it enough credit for?
Um, I'll take a stab at that. There may be some others I can't talk about, but on that one, I think not enough people give Apple credit for the amount of privacy preserving focus that they have put into not just Siri, but their products in general. And it's one of the reasons I'm still proud to say that, I worked at Apple and would work there again if the opportunity presented itself, because if I look at the tech competition out there today, I don't know a single other major player. There are smaller players like Brave for a privacy preserving browser, but a single larger player that cares so much about privacy. And and having been on the inside, I know it's not just marketing speak, it's real. And so a lot of the stories around the current changes are framed about how privacy is a negative. I think it's very much a positive, because if Apple gives up on that, then I don't know who's left to kind of wave the privacy banner. And so I was very proud when Tim Cook on Twitter X announced a few years back that privacy is a human right. It's a fundamental human right. So anyway, that's what I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I completely agree with it. I think we have an inside joke we have like when we like talk to the Chinese client, because we're talking about like if you get caught by the police, if you have an Android phone, like there's no need to, like for them to ask you the passcode. They can just like crack it like really easily. But you have an iPhone, I think they face like a real problem, because like there's just no way without your permission you can access like the core information inside the phone. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And then kind of going back the your answer to the first question. So, like, do you think if AI were built today, would it be voice first, or would it become more multimodal from day one?
I think if it was built today, and I don't think we're talking about Apple, but AI in general, I
Right.
still think it would, if it's built today, whether it's built by a big company like Google with a lot of resources or a startup, focus is important. And I think multimodal injects a lot of challenge that's unnecessary, when you should instead focus on building a tailored small product first, whether that's chat or video or translation or something, and then expand to other modalities over time. So I think the way that the big labs have done it historically would still be the way I think it should be done today.
I just like hearing you talk. Yeah, I person talk. So a
Uh,
little break, just like soaking it all in. So.
no worries. I can keep rambling if you want.
Oh my God, yeah, keep rambling, no stuff. Yeah. Let's switch gear a little bit. Let's talk about the AI hype versus reality. I feel like this is probably my most interested insight I want to get from like both of you. So the question to both of you is like, how much of the AI hype is real and how much is Silicon Valley cosplay?
Do you want to go first?
Okay. I think most of the hype is cosplay, I have to say, but the shift underneath is 100% real. People love pretending that they are AI founders, NASDAQs, and fancy agent demos, but zero adoption. I think that's the cosplay part. And that's the truth. AI actually changed human behavior. People use ChatGPT or Cloud every day. Companies are reorganizing around it, searching workflows, customer service, or even how do you say the service part all being rewritten. So sometimes I think, okay, maybe 70% of them are noise, but the remaining 30%, I think that's not hype. That's not cosplay. That's the real thing.
My answer is similar. I might have a different gauge on the percent, but I do think that there's an unnecessary amount of hype here. Now, for those that have built in Silicon Valley before, we know that there's this concept of a reality distortion field, and Steve Jobs was famous for how he was able to do that masterfully. And the challenge with applying that to AI today is you can distort reality as long as eventually shouldn't be 10 years down the line, there's substance to that. And I'm talking to a lot of folks in enterprises that are not the Magnificent Seven, big tech companies, that say that the current way that AI is being deployed is not actually solving their fundamental business problems. For example, they're still hiring BCG or McKinsey. to do tech implementations, and they're not approaching the AI research labs in the same way that the hype would have you believe. With that said, these are rapidly growing businesses, right? ChatGPT was the fastest company in the world, to my knowledge. I know less about the Chinese market, so forgive me, but to my knowledge, that reached the 100 million, then 200 million users, right? They did that faster than Instagram and Facebook before that, and WhatsApp. That's an accomplishment, but they're still losing a ton of money. They don't seem to have found a way to invert the very big financial losses into profit. And if we look at Anthropic, that's taken a B2B approach, that seems like they're going to hit profitability much sooner. And so I will say there is a lot of hype. I even give a talk called Hype, Hope, and a Little Bit of Substance. And I think the little bit of substance is slowly increasing, but I think that there is crazy frothy valuations out there, and a lot of expectations that are being set that I don't think will hit those expectations. But to be clear, I'm not a bear when it comes to the market. What I am is very bullish that there is going to be something with AI and it's fundamentally transformative technology, but maybe not to the extent of the people that think it's going to be God. I don't think that.
Those are some great answer. Like before I step a foot in the industry, my biggest question is, is AI boom more like the internet era where we had back in like the, early 2000s? Or is it like more like crypto? What's your guys' thoughts on that?
I can go first. My thought on that is that crypto I heard for the first time. So I went to college in 2008 and I was a freshman. And I remember hearing about crypto, I think in my junior year, which would have put it in 2010. And I remember someone saying $100 to buy a Bitcoin. And like I was a combination of my parents helping and me working was helping pay for school. And I'm like, I need that $100 for something else, right? And it really took over a decade for people to really understand the value of blockchain and decentralization, to the point where I won't mention who it was because we had Chatham House rules, but a very prominent hedge fund manager out of New York I met a few days ago. And he believed that within 5 years, most financial transactions are going to be decentralized, right? But that's almost 20 years, right, after at least I first heard of it, and it was a more fringe technology. I think AI has existed for a lot longer than that, right? There's been the original AI papers were in the early 50s, 60s, and people have talked about artificial intelligence from a long time before that, right? But I think for the current AI wave that really started 2022, 23, we're reaching that kind of crescendo point much faster than we did the crypto.
Yeah, exactly. It's much faster. Yeah. And I think if we talk about the internet boom, or I think it's much closer to the early internet. Like you said, the internet like took 20 years to reshape how humans get information. But AI just did it within maybe 12 months. So the entry point to information has already changed the shift. So people used to use Google, Instagram, but now millions of people ask ChatGPT, Cloud Perplexity every single day. And I think the behavior is kind of compounding. And this is exactly why I think AI is kind of looking like internet era. It changes the default interface of how humans interact with information. And I think this time the platform shift is real and already happening and is touching every job, every workflow, every channel. And so I think maybe AI, yeah, it's kind of similar with the internet boom, but I think maybe this time it's much bigger. But like you said, I think the most important part is how to make it profitable, because we could see there's a huge loss, right? They spend too much on the compute. So I don't know if it's a sustainable business. Yeah.
I'll add one other part. We talked about crypto, and you were talking about the internet. There was a survey done about sentiment towards AI, like emotionally, how do you react when you hear the word artificial intelligence, and then what is the visual image you get on that? In the U.S., and this was done last year, the sentiment was negative, and the visual image was Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, right? In Japan, the sentiment was positive, and the visual image was a cute little robotic animal, right? And I think I bring this up because I don't know another technology, even crypto, where there were the lovers and the haters, where you can have such a vastly different opinion of the technology, even if you don't understand the
Yes.
thing. Just the underlying assumption going into it can be so different. I don't think we had that for the internet.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a good point.
that's a very good point. So like why do you think that's the thing? I know like like the underlying part might be like the culture, right? Because like the anime, yeah, and like America is very, very tough, right? Like yeah, like Terminator kind of a thing. But yeah, why is that? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not a psychologist, so I'm out of my depth in answering it. But as an maybe uneducated in that perspective person, I did live in Japan almost 5 years, and I think the Japanese people are facing quite a few challenges, right? They're facing challenges around an aging population, a declining population, a shrinking economy, and
Yeah.
a very homogeneous population that isn't the easiest to integrate foreigners into. And so, given those constraints, oh, and as a country that adopted technology historically earlier than other countries and helped build it, in that context, their only way out is through AI, improved productivity, and robotic automation. If you're not going to accept foreign workers to make up for your own declining population, if you're not going to encourage or successfully encourage your young people to have more children, then those are really kind of your only options. And being predisposed to a cute version of technology, right, including through Totoro and the Studio Ghibli, you mentioned anime, probably predisposes people there. And honestly, in the U.S., it's quite the opposite. The U.S., I remember growing up and watching Terminator, and I can't think of a movie that has positively framed AI. I'm sure they're out there, but you've got the Terminator series, you've got iRobot, where you have a robotic AI that kills most people, right? And that it's just so different from Japan. Do you have a perspective?
Yeah, interesting. And I think I have talked to many marketers or say some knowledge workers in Los Angeles, and I found that they are quite scared of being replaced. And they kept asking me, okay, so how's the AI going? Will it replace me? And how long will I lose my job? And I received all these questions, and it's like, okay, but I have another strong feeling that they are quite scary, but they actually are not familiar with AI's capabilities. Like they just use ChatGPT for very shallow questions, just ask or just help them to polish the captions or help them rewrite the SEO content. But I don't think those use cases are quite in depth and not deep. So I think maybe one hand they are scary, and on the other hand, I think they don't experience the AI very deeply, and that's
Going
kind
off
of
that,
interesting. Yeah.
so kind of like that leads to my next question. What is the dumbest thing like a marketer that said about AI that make you want to shake them? So like in other words, what do you think the biggest misunderstanding, not only marketer, but like the general society they have about AI?
Do you want to go first since you brought us here?
Yeah, you can go first. Guess
Well,
first.
well, I would say maybe I'll answer that in two ways. One, for the uninitiated, I won't say uneducated because I don't think the tech community, at least in the US, does a good job of bringing people along, especially with this technology, right? You hear about, ooh, universal basic income. You hear about agentic coding. The average human has no idea what that is, right? And so for the uninitiated, not uneducated, I would say the most common misconception is that AI is coming for your job right now. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. I think AI will fundamentally impact the job market, just like any other technology revolution has. But anyone that tells you that they know exactly how it's going to play out, I don't listen to those people. I think for the category of people that do understand the technology, kind of the stupidest use case I've seen is I was going to say something, but I'm going to change my mind. It's you know creating, how to put it, it's trying to replace human creativity in areas where I think humans have a right to own that creativity. And so let me explain what I mean. I'm not talking about music AI. I'm not talking about image AI, but I'm talking about relationships. right? How does a human maintain a human-to-human connection with another human? I was just going to say, love bots, right, and sex bots, but there's a reason that those companies have done tremendously well. We live in a world, at least in the United States, where increasingly young people feel isolated, alone, left behind, and making human-to-human connection is harder. And so they're turning to these platforms for that, including platforms that in some cases have encouraged them to commit suicide, and that's very sad. And so I think maybe stupid is too strong of a word, but a technology, in my view, cannot and should not replace a human-to-human interaction at our core level of what makes us humans. And people searching out for that human connection in these technologies, I think, will ultimately end up being disappointed.
Yes, I think it's a quite important topic to talk about because I think maybe our generation or next generation have to learn how to interact and collaborate with AI in a good way, in a positive way. And well, meantime, we don't want to lose human to human interaction and connections. And I think the only thing for human in the future, I think the most important part is connecting with others. That's, I think, shaping why we are humans, why we are alive. So I think, yeah, this topic is quite important. And yeah, I think it's deep. Sorry, it makes me very shallow. Yeah, I think it's deep. Yeah, and yeah, about the dumbest thing I hear or the things I want to explain more is every time I hear something like, okay, from marketing team or the growth team, they say we are fine. We already do influencers, paid ads, and SEO, and then every time someone says that, I swear I want to shake them because that sentence tells me one thing: they are still living in the last century. Because paid ads, SEO, or KOLs, I think that was the old world, and that was when humans control distribution and Google controlled the discovery. And back then, yeah, you could run these three tricks or these three tactics and call it a marketing strategy, but AI just popped up, and we are not in the three tactics era anymore because I think AI is the new interface of the internet, and your entire job changes from the running campaigns to make sure both AI and human will see your brand. And so I think that's the thing I want to shake them. But on the other hand, I think I encourage every person, no matter they are marketers or researchers or anyone in the world, I encourage them to add more ways the chatbots, chat more ways AS. You have to see the boundaries. You have to see their capabilities. And actually, I think ChatGPT is my therapist. I have already cried like 3 times when I was chatting with ChatGPT, and I think it's helpful because sometimes I think ChatGPT is the most, how to say, it's the person who knows me a lot, maybe the most, because sometimes I couldn't talk something to my colleague or to my husband. So I think ChatGPT is the only source I could talk everything to.
Wow, that were great answers. So like something just like popped out of my mind, and I want to get your guys' feedback on this. Mengqi, Monica, Mengqi, whatever you want to say. Just mention, before Google used to dominate SEO, right? If you want to like place SEO, Google is a major player, have to play by their rules. And then, so now like I work with a lot of merchant, and then ChatGPT is like launching a interface with like an interface with Shopify, so people can directly buy product.
Yeah.
When asked, like what would you recommend? And then when people talk about ChatGPT, they're thinking about this is the most impartial platform. Like, right, I can be honest with you. You're gonna give me the most honest answer. But I feel like if a platform is start to monetize on the product recommendation, is it truly be able to be impartial, or is it we're gonna be like leading to a phase where, okay, we're not like dominated by Google with like the SEO. We're dominated by ChatGPT because all the merchants are paying ChatGPT, like money, be like, oh yeah, if you promote my product, oh, I'm gonna give you 5%. And people are gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna give you 10%. And then is like, what's your guys' thought on that?
Okay, I think it is very important to see that ChatGPT is starting to monetize their traffic. So it seems like, okay, ChatGPT is expanding the ways to earn money to pay for compute. So I think it's a kind of a positive signal, because if ChatGPT couldn't earn money, I don't think we could. I don't think it's sustainable. And on the other hand, I think this kind of behaviors show that maybe we should pay more attention to geo, or say how to promote your product in AI chatbots. And I think that's a positive signal for all brands, because you don't have to rely on the incumbents before. You don't have to throw all the money into Google and Meta. And this is a very good point, that I found that the race of advertising is kind of close in US market. We only have like Meta and Google and the big company in this industry, but in China it's still rising and it's kind of in change. So for advertisers, I don't think it's a good news for them to hear, because maybe sometimes there are other things. It's like they have no choice. They have to throw money in those two platforms. But now we have a new one, the AI chatbots, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, even though Gemini belongs to Google too. And we have other distribution channels. That's good news. So maybe it's the last chance for small companies or new companies to compete with the incumbents.
And I originally didn't think I'd have a comment to add here, because marketing is so far away from my strength that it's one of the first roles I hire for, because I'm so bad at it. And so maybe I'll actually work with your new company. We can talk about that offline. But I would say, to piggyback on your point, I generally don't like the idea of a monopolist, because it seems so anti-American, right? And it's anti-competitive. It's also not capitalist. I'm disappointed, for example, that Google was not found to be a monopolist by the U.S. Justice Department, when the reality on the ground is, as you were saying, there's only so many places that matter for SEO. And when those places also, in my view, might have some questionable ways that they handle their auctions, right, with incentives, I'm all for as many people that can break away at that advantage as possible. I'm skeptical that they could, however. And now with Gemini kind of leapfrogging OpenAI, at least temporarily, there's people this week that are talking about how maybe OpenAI won't succeed in being an aggregator, which is what you need to be a platform play like they are with a primarily B2C product. And maybe Google will sink OpenAI too. And as they did Microsoft's search business and advertising business, as they did Yahoo. And I hope those people are wrong, because we do need more competition, and I hope that happens. And of course, we can't talk about this without saying the word perplexity, but I'll just stop with saying the word perplexity and leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. You got my point.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm just going to take a moment for all of that to sink in. And then to switch gear, I know both of you guys are founder of, like various like businesses. So I have a question. Like it might be a little hard for you guys to answer, but I do want to answer it anyway. So are most AI startup building real technology, or just wrappers around someone else's model?
I can start. So when you say most AI companies, we should be clear. And I know the compute side very well, right? I usually frame it as there's the big 10 AI companies when I segment the market. And those big 10 AI companies we can all name by heart, right? The OpenAI, XAI, Anthropic, et cetera. But they include Google, Microsoft, Amazon. Those companies account for about 80%. This is my estimate. There's no real market data on this, but my estimate for total compute used. And compute, as we know, is the picks and shovels of the AI space. And so if 80% of the picks and shovels are going towards 10 companies, then I'm not sure it helps to talk about the 1,000 that make up the other 20%, right? And so one, market concentration, monopolistic, et cetera, right? We can say that. But I think that those companies are doing obviously many things right and a few things wrong. One of the things I think that they're doing right is that they, and I try not to create a panacea for this, because they each have distinct approaches. But I think one of the things they're doing right is trying to push the technology to advance as rapidly as possible to reach a point of potential AGI. I think that's a good thing. On the flip side, I think we have not yet found the human interface for AI, right? I guarantee you it's not a chatbot. I guarantee you it's not this device that made Apple into the company that it is. It's not a pin from Humane or a necklace. If I knew what it was, that's the company I'd be building next, right? Because, but we haven't found that yet. And that's okay because we're still early on in the technology. But I wish more thought was being put into the human interface for how humans interact with AI. And of course, we know that OpenAI acquired Johnny Ive's new company and they're supposedly working on a cool device. I'll believe it when I see it. But so far, those human interaction devices have been duds.
So can I just understand that you bet more on new AI hardware or?
Oh, I'm convinced that existing interfaces are not going to be the winners. And let's just look at two things, right? If we look at the internet as a technology, right? How do we access the internet? Well, we used to access it through physical computers like the one I'm not even calling from that, I'm calling from a laptop. But we had big desktop. First, we had mainframes that were in warehouses that only like the government could afford in the 1940s. Then we miniaturized that into desktops. Then we miniaturized that into laptops. But it wasn't, I think, until literally the iPhone when the internet started becoming ubiquitous around the world. And so that went from the 1940s or even earlier when the first computers were created. And as a Bulgarian, I have to say, Atanasov, a Bulgarian American, helped invent the original computer. So a shout out to Bulgarians. But it took us from, let's say, the 40s until the mid 2000s to figure this interface out, which seems to have become the optimal way to access the internet. Again, we're early in the AI, to use the baseball analogy, we're in early inning for AI. So it's not a problem that we haven't found it yet, but I'm convinced that we haven't found it yet. But what do you think?
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to overdo it. I think it's a perfect answer.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Like, yeah, follow-up question. Right. Yeah, like, oh my God, I just love talking to smart folks. But okay, so if you were saying like what we're having for AI right now is kind of like the big and heavy computer the government used back in like the 1940s. So, but like I feel like okay, so that's the computer like age, and then there's like the crypto. But I feel like crypto developed at so much faster rate than like from the big heavy computer to the laptop, right? So if we're taking that into consideration, since we're going everything at a faster pace, like what do you think the timeline might be? And you were saying like like they're already working on it. So like if you were to create a company that's going to make like like the next like near perfect like AI product, what that might be. Yeah, I just want to pick your brain on that.
Oh, well, I'm going to disappoint you because, like I said, if I knew the answer to the second question, I'd go do that thing and I wouldn't tell you about it until it was ready. And I don't know what that is. But to answer your first, I think you're absolutely right that the pace of change is increasing at an increasing rate, right? And that's an incredible thing, right? For those who remember calculus, that means the second derivative is positive. Yay! But like from sticks and stones to gunpowder to industrial revolution to computers to now AI, we're talking thousands of years to hundreds of years to decades to now sub-decade. And the pace within AI is that the leading models are being adjusted on a month-to-month basis, right? GPT-5 came out recently. They patched it with 5.1, and even that Gemini beat after just a few weeks. And now they're supposedly rushing 5.2 to beat that too, right? And so basically validating your point, it's always hard to predict the future. And Yogi Berra says, I don't like to make predictions, especially about the future. But since you asked, I would hope that within the next 2 years, someone would have found it and that we realize that that's the solution within another 2 years. Because I don't think everyone knew the day Steve Jobs announced this thing that it was going to be as big as it is. And so I hope that we've found what that could look like within 2 years and then realize that we were right within 2 years. So let's say 4 years.
Very cool. Yeah.
And other people that are much more bullish than I am, they think it'll be much faster than that.
Okay. Actually, I want to talk a little bit about robotics AI because there's a huge hype in both US and Chinese market because many investors are keen on this topic. But I have to say, I kind of not that positive about robotics AI because, as you said, Apple puts lots of efforts into user privacy, right? And for robotics AI, I think privacy is a huge issue, and also I don't think the safety alignment is going well. And the last part is about the model. We could see many progress from multimodal like the View 3, the Nano Banana, and as well as the end-to-end native multimodal model. But I don't hold a very positive attitude towards the robotics AI. I think it's more complicated because you have 3D dimension. You have 3 dimension to like the computing. How to say, the complexity of computing is kind of explosive, huge. So I don't think the robotics AI is in the near future, but I know that the Japan hold a very positive attitude to that because they are facing the manpower lacking shortage, so they hope to use the robotics AI to do the job. Yeah.
What an insightful conversation. I think I learned so much on today's podcast. I appreciate both of you so much. And before we hit our time limit, I just have one more question for both of you, and then we're going to wrap up. So if you have one thing to recommend to anybody, you know, in the current market who want to be founder, who want to get into AI, who want to get into tech, what's that advice going to be?
My go-to on that is to say there's never been a easier time for anyone to be able to self-skill up on almost anything. With AI, and I'm proud of my college degree and all the education and the money I spent on it, and I don't want to devalue that in any way. And you can be anywhere in the world and access these technologies, and the free versions are good enough for you to learn and upskill yourself. And so, yes, as I said earlier, AI is going to have job disruption, just like any other technology. This one might be bigger than others, but the power is in your control to learn how to make the most of that technology and integrate it into your job and integrate it into your career and your life. I think the people that embrace it and do it that way will be much more successful. And so I hope people will take a stab at it.
My advice would be don't wait, just do it. This is the best timing. And you don't want to lose it. So just do it. Grab it and utilize it.
Just do it, as Nike said. Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect wrap up. And then, yay! And then we can stop the recording and we can talk about something else before Simeon needs to walk the infant.
Well, I wanted to say thank you, but that's okay. Thank you.
I think you are too. I think you kind of like, because before I met you, I think you are more on technical perspective, or you are quite familiar with the tech vision and etc. But I think you kind of like, you know everything.
I was just like, just keep talking. I want to know more. Yeah, he's like the research into himself. So yeah, I was like, oh my God, we got to invite him on the podcast. So.
Well, I know we're still recording, so hopefully this part won't be included. But if you ask for my old company, my CTO, he would say, I'm not technical at all. And I get offended by that because I'm like, I'm an engineer, I code. But the reality is, compared to a lot of the deeply technical people here, that's not my strength. My strength is what you've identified, which is being able to stitch it all together, right? And I credit a childhood filled with strategy video games to why that is.
Yeah, we'll only cut the childhood strategy game into the thing. And then I remember, don't cut the last part, okay? Just a little side note. But for our little editor. So yeah, she will.